Okay, guys, this is Eric Wanger with Wanger Racing. This is more about the European trip and adventure and differences between Europe and America. I did look at some of the comments from part one. It doesn't, when I say there are things that Europe does better than us, I mean it. And there's things we do better than they do too. Doesn't mean I hate America, by the way. It just means they're doing things better and we're doing some things better. But anyway, this is part two, just for some differences. And this one's just about roads. Next week, I think I'll just talk about the food and restaurant stuff because it's pretty weird. I mean, I shouldn't say weird. In a way, it's better. In a way, it's just not. But anyway, back to I left off about the roads and stuff and how they were so much better. Well, someone's like, well, they pay for them. They do. So we drove, the countries we were in were Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, France, and Italy. The two most expensive gas places I saw was one in Italy, and then by far, well, I shouldn't say by far. Sorry, one in Netherlands and one in Switzerland were the two highest. And the Switzerland one, now remember they charge by liter for fuel. But if you convert that to a gallon, which is common in the United States, in Switzerland, the highest I saw was $9.67 a gallon for gas. Now, here's what's a little bit strange, though. Their diesel is not that much more expensive. So if you look at the United States, for instance, our diesel is like $1 more a gallon. I think they're like 7 cents more a gallon for diesel. And the second highest was like $9.46, and that was in the Netherlands. So neither one was cheap. And the cheapest one was like still in the nines. So it's really expensive. But you got to remember, this is important too, that half that cost for their fuel is taxes. So I'm in Oklahoma, and we're paying right now $4.36 a gallon. About 37 cents or 40 cents, about that or so, is taxes. In Europe, half theirs is taxes. So it's like $4.50 a gallon goes for taxes. Now, what do they do that? Well, of course, better roads and also different transportation. Now, here's one thing that I did like about Europe. So we drove about 5,000 miles, probably more than that. But of the entire 5,000-mile trip, you know how many construction zones I saw? 7. I will see 4 driving across the state of Oklahoma. When I drove to Indiana to go get the engine from Nye, I saw 4. Now, here's the big difference between Europe and the United States when it comes to road construction. So in Europe, when they put cones and they block off a lane, they're actually working. So I drove to Indiana, and there were 3 construction sites where all they had done was put out cones to block off a lane for nobody to work. And yeah, they had it flashing that it's construction and you should slow down when there was no one there. That didn't happen. So in Europe, when they cone off things, they are actually working. Here's the other thing. I was surprised by the amount of workers they actually had working on an actual work site. I counted 4. But here's the difference. All 4 were working. Have you ever passed by a road construction site in America? They'll have 7 people. 2 will be working. The others are like supervising or doing something, but they're not working. Maybe that's why the ones in Europe, the roads get done, because they're working. Not one guy's got to supervise the guy to watch to supervise this other guy who's actually using the excavator. They got like 4 people using the excavator and doing stuff, not just one that's actually working. Instead of all, like, that's pretty right. That's partly it too. I bet you they cost less to actually build roads in Europe because they don't have to pay 10 people to do what really 4 should be doing. I don't know. It's just me talking, but that's for sure a difference. They don't have random sites all over where they're just doing construction, unlike the United States. The other thing that was kind of neat about the whole deal is they've got at least in several of the countries, there's these lanes, like little, maybe 2 cars length, and there are chutes off on the shoulder where a car could stop if they break down or something. And then in Italy and some of the other countries, they'll tow those cars for free. Even says there's signs up there that says tow them for free. So if a car breaks down, they're not just on the side of the road. They're actually off to the side in a special location. That is kind of neat. The United States doesn't do that. Here's what sucks. The traffic there sucks. You know why it sucks? Because most places only have 6 lanes, 3 lanes going each way. So under most conditions, it's actually flowing pretty smoothly. But when you get into more crowded areas, this is no joke. It's like LA traffic, but instead of LA having like seven, 8 lanes on one side and seven, 8 lanes on the other side, all full. You've got 3 lanes that are all full, and they're backed up for miles. So, for instance, as you driving into London, we were driving out of London, dude. That I guarantee that traffic on there's 3 straight lanes. We're backed up at least 6 miles of nothing but cars, and they were just barely moving. And that was very common in other countries too that we went to. When you got close to other cities, they were just like that, just jam packed. We waited like 45 minutes and didn't move forward, and there was no wreck. If that happens in the United States, you're waiting 45 minutes usually because somebody, I gotta be in a hurry, gotta get to the front. Oh, someone rubbed into me and there was a wreck. And then everybody's gonna rub their neck and look at it. That wasn't the case. It was just too many cars. Now, they don't, you could kind of tell why they do that is because they want to encourage you to use other modes of transportation. So in America, we don't have those other modes. What I mean by that is if you look at France, you can hop on their TGV, and that it's a fast train that's going like, I don't know, 180 mile an hour or something. And you could hop on that and you could be in the next city, lickety split, and you have to avoid all of that. So that's great too. So that's cool. And then they got all kinds of mass transportation systems in cities that make it far more efficient. America, some cities do, some don't. They don't. I shouldn't say they. We don't do it as much as they do, I should say. Now, of course, they spend more tax money from the fuel to cover that. And here's something else that you will not like about Europe. Their roads are also toll roads. Now you're like, well, we have toll roads here. I live in Oklahoma. We have toll roads. It's ridiculous. So like if you travel from Oklahoma City to Tulsa, you have to travel on a toll road. And it was supposed to be paid off years ago. It's never paid off. And I thought we were like getting screwed over because we're getting paid like, I think we're now like $6.50 to go from Tulsa to Oklahoma City. And if you're a semi, I think it's like 20. I was like, we're getting screwed. No. When we were going in, I think it was Germany, they have these special cameras that track you, and they charge you by the kilometer that you travel on the road, which is like, it's similar to the toll roads here, but the tolls are so much more expensive. To give you an idea, we're on this bus, so it's a charter bus, and this toll across, I think it was Germany, was $286 for the toll. Now you're like, well, that's a tour bus. True, but a semi can travel, like I said, it's like right around $20 to go from Oklahoma City to Tulsa. I think it would cost maybe, there's probably a bunch of them, but I don't think you'd be over $200 if you're in a semi across the Oklahoma, unless you have like an oversized load. This was just a charter bus. It wasn't even a semi. I don't even know how much the semis pay. So you're talking about expensive. So besides the gas tax that they pay an exorbitant amount for tolls for the roads. And I think Italians are even worse because there's a toll stop all over. By the way, that brings up another point. They'll have these checks on the road that slow traffic down, at least in Italy did. Sometimes they do that just to check your passports, because this you may not know. You would think European Union, for most of those countries, they have an agreement that you could travel between borders without having to have a borders check. So in other words, we got to France, and from France we could drive to Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, and we didn't have like a border check where you had to show them your passport and stuff. But I should remind you, you should always have your passport anyway on you, because at any time they could do what some of the Italians did, is they just had a random check set up on the highway that made things way more congested, where all they did was check people's passports to make sure they were coming in correctly. Now they do it all the time? No, it's just random. So it's best to always have it on you, but you don't need it to travel. Because I thought, man, this would be so cool. My passport's going to have all these different countries stamped in them. You know, the only one that got stamped? France. Because we went from London, and London just looked at it. They don't stamp. But France stamped, because we took a charter bus, or a ferry over to France, to Calais. And then from there, got our charter bus, kept going. And then when we left, we flew out of France, so it got stamped again. But anyway, point being is, you could travel, at least in the European Union, without a you still need a passport, but there's not border checks. You should always keep your passport on you, though, because randomly they could check you. Also, we went to the Vatican City, too, which is considered a country. One more little thing before, and I'll leave off on this. Here's something interesting. There's these small cars in Italy, and I mean, they're smaller than a smart car. Like, I could literally put it in my pickup bed. It turns out in Italy, if you have this really small car, you don't even have to have a driver's license. So you could drive that car with no license. You're like, oh my God, aren't they worried about getting a wreck? Not with the traffic. Yeah, they're going to get in a wreck, but it's not like you can go on. In America, like the fatalities is so much easier to happen because if you think about it, we can go way faster. Um, if you were in Rome, because that's where we were, and we saw these little cars, I can't see you going 60 miles per hour. I can't see you going 40 in a residential area. I can't see you going 20. There's just too many people and bikes and motorcycles, which I'm going to talk about one more thing. The other common thing, really common is, and this is super common there, they have more motorcycles on the road than they do cars. And they have just about as many bicycles in the cities as they do cars, which could sound really confusing. But if you look at America, maybe 10%, not 20%, I'm being rough, I don't know if someone's got the numbers, are motorcycles. If you go to Europe, especially in the cities, it's probably like 60% motorcycles and the rest are cars. And once you get inside the city, bikes, because we've got bike lanes in Broken Arrow that are pointless because no one bikes. They're like, we were in Amsterdam. I'm not joking. There's probably 1,000 bikes, bicycles, not motorcycles, bicycles, all put together that people were rode around the city with. And I'm talking like a huge, think of like the front of the school where they have all the bikes. It's like that, but thousands. Just to boop, boop, boop. Probably because they can't afford gas. But I will say, way more people bicycle in Europe than they do here, by far. Same with London, way more bicycles. And it could be they're in better shape too, because this is last thing I'm going to leave off this video, and I went a little bit long, but whatever. When you look at the people of America and you look at the people there, I thought we are going to be, when we go over there, we're going to be giants compared to these Europeans, because that's what I believed, because I listened to the news or propaganda, I should say. No. We are giants because we're way fatter. So by far, we are fatter than they are. Like, we're huge. When you go there, over to Europe, they're all much skinnier than us. And I'm not talking like they're bones. They're just in shape. We look like the Stay Puft Marshmallow men and women. I'm not joking. Now, not all, obviously, but for the most part, they're in way better shape. And the other thing is this, height. I thought we would be giants like height-wise. No. Turns out Netherlands actually has the highest, tallest average population in the world. And you're going to be like, America. Go over there. Now, I'm not just talking dudes. The girls, there were so many girls my height. I'm 6 foot tall. I thought I should be average. I felt short over there. It's everywhere. Most of Europe's that way until you get to Italy. Then you can feel like a giant again. But, yeah, we're not taller than them. Some are, but not all. So that's a little eye-opener for you. We're definitely fatter, but they are definitely taller, girls and boys. Anyway, that's it for this time. Next time, we about food.